Okay, so let's quickly run through everything we're going to need. You can do without some of these items, but they're definitely going to help to have a cake spinner and board, or you could just use a cutting board or large plate, 3 bowls and some teaspoons, water, vanilla essence, a very good quality icing sugar, cream, baking paper and some white wooden spoon, vanilla essence, bacon spray, a nice light oil, self-raising flour, a snowflake chocolate easy mix, muffin mix, chopped chips and cocoa, 2 eggs and 2 13cm baking tins, a rolling pin spatula, small paintbrush, big mixing spoon, big sharp knife, small sharp knife, piping bags with a grass nozzle and a leaf nozzle, food safe pencil, fondant with some CNC and or Tyler's, spaghetti, toothpicks, a scale and 2 large mixing bowls with a good measuring jug, a sieve, trusty mixer, some corn flour, and your prime gel colors, a couple of silver dargies and isomalt. Jump straight into making those biscuits. Add 125 grams of room temperature white wooden spoon into your bowl. Beat until smooth. Add 65 grams of icing sugar and 180 grams of self-raising flour. This is a very simple 1, 2, 3 recipe. You're welcome to add some chocolate chips as you go. Work this by hand with a spoon until it starts coming together. Add that dash of vanilla. Now time to get hands on. If you're battling to get it to come together, you can add just a little bit more butter. I'm using white wooden spoon here to keep it budget friendly and also because it's a good stable alternative. Work this until you get a yummy cookie dough, wrap with cling wrap and store in the fridge to chill. I decided to do this snowflake easy mix because the other day I was chatting to someone and they said, yeah, snowflakes meant to be too fresh to flop, and somehow they managed to have a disaster. So I figured, let's troubleshoot and see what went wrong. Fold a baking sheet in half, grab your tin and draw out your circle. Cut out on the inside of this line so that your paper will fit nicely inside your tin. Give this a very generous coating of spray and cook. Stick your oven on to 160 degrees. Keep in mind, not all ingredients and not all equipment and not all ovens are created equally. I will give you as many tips and tricks as I possibly can to help you get this right. We want 500 grams of that muffin mix in a mixing bowl. Add 200 ml water, 150 ml oil. Crack 2 eggs into your jug first just to make sure that they're good and fresh. Break them up with a fork and add them in. Spice this up with some choc chips. I added some coconut, to your own preference though, and a generous helping of additional cocoa. Mix until well combined, but don't overmix. Do this by hand only. Divide this between your 2 tins and give a good solid tap on the counter to release any air bubbles. Stick these on a baking sheet in your preheated oven. The degrees could be 150 up to 180, depending on the type of oven you're using. You want to bake these low and slow. We're going to make a super basic buttercream here. Use the remainder of your room temperature butter. Should be about 370 grams. Cut it up and then beat it till smooth. Measure out and sieve the icing sugar to double the amount that the butter was. Very important that this is well sieved. Add that into your bowl with 2 dashes of cream and slowly combine. down the sides to make sure there's no missed sugar. Once you have almost like a crumbly doughish texture, you can add another dash of cream and that vanilla. I'll also add in a big spoon of cornstarch for stability. You can then beat this until we get the right consistency. We want it to be thick and stable, smooth and delicious. Remember that temperature, humidity, all that can affect buttercream. So you will have to adjust this according to your environment by adding more cornstarch or icing sugar, or if it's too hard, a little bit more cream. Buttercream should be sticking onto those mixing blades, and when you scoop out a big spoon of it, it should basically be clinging to that spoon as well. Don't forget to let the kiddies lick off the yummies. Okay, let's prep a quick template for the biscuits. So I'm using my baking tin for the sizing. I'm gonna draw a half circle. And obviously if you've decided to do a bigger cake, everything is going to be upscaled according to your cake tin size. I'm then measuring to see how I can fit 3 crosses and drawing out a basic template for that. Cut these out and set aside. I've got the leftover baking paper from the tin earlier. Grab the cookie dough out the fridge. Got my small sharp knife and rolling pin. Baking paper set up on my cookie tray. And I'm going to warm up that dough just slightly, ready for rolling. When you flatten out that first piece, it should be about the same size as your template off the bat. That way when you roll it out, it's going to be more than enough for the sun rays. Cut along the bottom of your template, and using the curved edge as your guide, you're going to cut triangles to create those sun rays, removing the in-between triangles with a sharp knife. Cut out your cross template and gently move this over to your baking sheet. We're going to stick a toothpick in the bottom. This is going to help us place it on the cake later. We want to make 2 more of these so we have 3 crosses. Moving the sun over onto your sheet, gently flop it over into your hand and peel back the baking paper, changing direction as needed. Adjust everything into position. Add in 2 skewer sticks, a few random round biscuits. This is going to be the stone and extras. And you can now add those into the oven with those cakes, which should pretty much be getting close to their end point now. We want these to bake just until they're golden brown on the bottom, making sure they're not squishy on top to the touch. The small ones are likely going to come out a bit sooner than the big one. On checking your cakes, they should also not have any squishiness. They should bounce back like a sponge and then they're good to come out. We now need 1 egg white. Yes, this is a 3rd egg. We now need to make some royal icing. If If you're not fussy about the raw egg thing, you don't have to do this double boiler part. If you are concerned, you can just warm up your egg to the right temperature that will make sure it's safe. You need to whisk continuously and don't turn this into scrambled egg. We're then going to add the last bit of icing sugar that we have directly into this and whip up into a very meringue-like icing for piping on our sun. So we need orange and yellow. We can then divide this up, add our touch of color using the tip of a toothpick, and use a teaspoon to add dots of water to get our icing to a melted chocolate, slightly runny but still stable consistency. Remember to keep your icing covered at all times or it will start hardening. The best place to keep this is in piping bags. Clean up, grab yourself some coffee and tea, or tea and tea, both. Shake it out a bit and we can now start getting to the really fun stuff. Yay, we can now jump into the fun stuff. To start with, we're going to ice our sun biscuit. So we're going to just apply the yellow in a rainbow type shape, so leaving space in between each line for us to come back later with the orange and the whites. The royal icing's consistency should be sort of like a melted chocolate, so that it's going to hold nicely, blend nicely, and not run off your biscuit all over the show. Now that all three are on there, we're going to take our skewer stick and blend from the bottom center of the sun out into each sun ray and back. So out and in, out and in. This is going to blend the colors nicely and create a very cool pattern. You can fill in with a little bit of white icing here and there we need to. We don't want to have any biscuits showing through, so you can also use the white to highlight sections. Be creative here. Once you're happy with that, you're then going to use your skewer stick to create a definition between the rays and the center of the sun. So I'm using again, rainbow shape sort of pattern, sweeping over to blend the colors a bit more. If you have some edible glitter, you can sprinkle some on there and add whatever extra love you feel like. Just remember, we're going to have to do all of this on the other side again, but do not flip your biscuit over and do that until it's completely 1000% dry. Mix some cocoa powder and some of that white that was left in the bowl. We're going to spoon this over our crosses. You can pop this on if you want to, but I found this worked perfectly fine. You can add just a little dash of white and use your skewer stick to swizzle a pattern on to make a little bit more detail and to clean off the edges of the biscuit. Once the crosses have set up a little bit, you can come back with a skewer stick and just add some texture lines in. Grab about 300 grams of fondant, take a small little piece off, and we're going to use this as a hand cleaner. You want to do this to keep the white from getting mucky. So you're going to rub it all over your hands as much as possible and your surface. Speaking of surface, you want to try and have something that's as non-stick as possible to work. I have this clear xylophane sheet, which I found to be the best surface that I have come across so far. Now I'm going to add about 1/3 teaspoon of CMC powder, Tylose, or any hardening agent that works with fondant. This is going to stabilize your fondant in order to make figurines. To check we have enough fondant, I'm going to grab my cake tin, whichever tin, whatever size you're doing, and do a quick mock-up checking sizes to make sure we have enough fondant. Work that fondant back into a nice smooth ball, flatten out a little bit and set it aside. Let's prep our cake canvas. Holding your hands steady and level, you're going to cut off the top, cut this in half, do this for both cakes, and then we're going to start icing. Anchoring your elbow against your hip, helps to keep your hand steady and level for making that cut. Pop a little bit of buttercream onto your board to make sure your cake's not going to move all over the show. This is so important, don't forget this. A piping bag is really going to help you here just to apply that icing onto your cake so that you're not faffing and adding crumbs back into your icing. Also make sure you're constantly cleaning off your spatula. With a light pressure on the icing, move that spatula back and forward until it smooths out beautifully. If you're doing any different fillings in your cake, you want to do more stable fillings at the bottom. Make sure you pipe that dam on, it's very important for stability, and you can do your more squishy fillings at the top. Use your piping bag to squeeze some icing onto the cake in between those layers, or on those layers, covering the layers. Grab that spatula in that back and forward motion, spread that icing out. An offset spatula is going to be key here. It's really going to help you get this done without so much hassle. A knife can do the job, but you are most likely going to struggle a lot more. Once your cake is fully crumb coated, we're going to set it aside and leave it to rest and set up. Back to the fun stuff. Clean those hands again and let's break off just under half of our white fondant. I'm going to work this into a nice neat ball and check on the sizing with my tin again. Cup your hands as if you're wanting to scoop water and roll another small piece of fondant in your hands to create a nice smooth ball. Practice this a few times until you master making a smooth ball. It's one of the bases that is absolutely essential for making figurines. Create two smaller balls which we're going to use for the paws. Using a skewer stick, put 2 line indentations in each paw. As you go, keep checking sizing with your tin and with all your elements. Keep your hands cool and dry. You can see me here putting my hands on a cool surface and putting some cornstarch on so that your fondant doesn't get tacky on your hands. Make a quick mock-up foot to see for sizing. We will then roll this back into a ball so we can match the ball sizes so both feet are the same. Take your nice smooth foot ball and squish it between your hands to create an oval. We're then going to pinch that between our fingers and flatten and smooth out to get a nice foot shape. So you're pinching the sides of the foot with your thumb and pointing finger in a bit of a V shape. Add your toe lines in similarly to how we did the paws. On the underside of the foot, the side we're going to see, we're going to use our thumb to put an indent for the toes to curl over. Repeat that for the second foot and set them aside. Now for the dreaded head. If you're doing a bigger cake, you can use a filler inside and wrap your fondant around. For example, cake of carrots, marshmallow, whatever you can think of. Just get this ball to be as smooth as humanly possible, especially on the front for the face. You don't want any lines or cracks on this. You want it to be flat backed because remember you're going to have that sun in the center of the cake, so it mustn't be a round ball. It's going to be a flat circle rather than a ball. Check your size constantly as you go. I felt that my paws were a little bit too big in comparison to the face, so I did scale them down a little by pinching off a bit off the back and cutting it off. Use your little finger to press an indent about midway through the circle to create a line for where the eyes are going to go. You're going to do this all the way around the sides as well. Press with your thumbs and fingers to define those eye sockets. Use your skewer stick and add a line in the middle of your face, which is going to point up to that little nose. If you have a balling tool, you can go in and just add some extra definition to where those eyes are going to go. Grab another piece of your fondant, measure on your cake to see for the crown sizing. Add a little bit more than what you think you're going to need and put cocoa into this to make it brown. We're going to take a small piece of this brown, add some black color into it to make our black fondant. Make sure you clean your hands before you touch anything else. Add a tiny dot of red to make pink. And then roll your brown fondant into a little sausage. Roll 2 tiny pieces of black fondant into skinny little, more like string than sausages, as well as a small white piece, and wrap this around your brown. We're then going to roll that out, twist, fold, roll, twist, fold. This is going to create a nice marbling effect, which is great for woods, stone, that sort of thing. You want to still be able to see all 3 of those colors blended but still defined. If you feel your hands are starting to get tacky, sticky, hot, cool them off. Use some cornstarch on your fondant, your surface, your hands. We're now going to cut this into 3 parts and roll these out into 3 thin rope-like lengths. Work your hands from the center outward, flat-handed, rolling back and forward the whole time to get that length. You want to do this quite quickly so that your fondant doesn't dry out, because we're still going to plait these. Once you have those 3 strands, line them up. We're going to now do a plait. So from the outside into the center, right to the center, left to the center. This is a loose plait. We don't want it to be tight. Pinch together on the one end, carry on plaiting, and then pinch on the other side. Now grab yourself a set of small clean scissors, and we're going to carefully cut little thorns into our crown. So we're snipping small pieces, not snipping them off, just snipping them into the fondant and flicking them up all different directions to make this effect. Clean those hands again and let's get the eyes done. You're going to roll a small little piece of black fondant into a ball and put it in the sockets to see how it fits. Then take an even tinier piece and roll with one finger into a long, small sausage with one side thinner than the other. To do this, you're basically applying more pressure on the one side than you are to the other. Put a teeny dot of water onto your skewer stick. This is going to help you to be able to maneuver this small little piece of fondant. Now with a damp brush, and I say damp very clearly, we do not want water dripping everywhere. We're going to just slightly wet the area where we're going to be adding on those eyes. Now put a small ball of white where we're going to have the closed eye. The eyelash will then be placed at the bottom of this. You can add some extra length to it if it feels a bit short. Stick in your black eyeball, and we're then going to roll 2 tiny little pieces of black, similarly to how we did the eyelash, to now add eyelashes on the side of this eye. If you do find your fondant is drying out, you can rub some white wooden spoon into it. Use your slightly damp skewer stick to pick these up and position. Roll 2 small white balls, which we're then going to press on just above the upper lip You don't want these to be too thick, so do push them quite flat. At the bottom of where these join, push in your skewer stick and pull the fondant out and down to create a lower lip. You can also press in next to the cheeks to give dimples. Pinch off and roll a teeny ball of pink fondant for the nose. Stick this with a tiny bit of water and use your fingers to pinch a triangular shape. You can then take your skewer stick and make a little indent on the top to make it look like a heart. Roll and flatten out a small pink sausage. Add in a little line in the middle and secure this tongue into the mouth using a tiny bit of water. And then bend this up over the lip to give that little face. Let's give this bunny some soul now. So we're going to roll the teeniest, tiniest little white balls, and these are going to go into the eye for that eye flick. Add a dot of that black fondant into the white, mix to make grey. Roll this out into a thin, long sausage, remembering to put more pressure onto the ends to give that tapered effect. Cut in half for the eyebrows. Get expressive with these and put them how you feel. Let's add that cute pink onto the underfoot. So we test for sizing and then roll back up and double it so that both sides are the same. 6 tiny balls and 2 small ones. You can add that indent like you did on the nose to give it a slight odd shape. Do a quick mock-up ear for sizing. Resize if needed and make that second matching ball. Roll out a nice tapered sausage and then using your pinky finger, put pressure in the center to create an indent. You can also use your thumb and stretch this out to elongate and shape. Do the same in a smaller scale with a tiny piece of pink and flatten this out with a rolling pin. Stick this into the middle of the ear. I'm showing you 2 methods here on sticking these ears onto the bunny. So the one is with a toothpick and the other is with spaghetti. We want to press in guard holes before officially attaching the ears to the bunny. Press in and on and adjust as needed. I'm going to slide this in here. If you found this online class to be a blessing to you and you would like to bless us back, here is the options for that. If you'd like to send us a donation, you can do so via PayPal or direct into a bank account. Share, share, share. Get the word out there and spread this video far and wide. Thank you so much. We also hugely appreciate all feedback. Finally, we get to start layering some color on this blank canvas. Add in 2 dots of yellow and 1 toothpick tip of dark blue coloring into your buttercream. I'm using a gel food color. This is better for basically everything, except chocolate. Mix this up, but again, leave those flecks of pure color in there You don't want this to be boring and flat one color note. Cover your cake in a nice decentish layer of this buttercream using that back forward motion. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to make this scruffy by doing a tapping movement, which is going to pull the buttercream away from the cake, creating like a grass effect. Add a little extra yellow for those bright color pops. Lightly press your spatula against the cake and pull away. You're going to repeat this quite quickly around the whole cake. This is that tapping motion I was speaking about, which is going to make it look funky. You can add on a little bit extra buttercream here and there if you feel like you're not quite getting length out of it. And here we are, we finally get to put this whole thing together. Definitely my favorite part. Carefully position the sun in the middle of the cake, making sure it's central all around. Add on your crown. Everything you handle with sugar, you need to be careful. Add in supports for the head. Crush up some of that extra biscuit with cocoa. This is going to be your sand. Use some cake offcut to create a ball. This is going to be our hill. I've added more yellow and a lot more blue into that buttercream to make a dark green, which I'm now going to ice over this hill and place in position on the cake. I've also prepped an icing bag with that darker green. I've taken a grass piping tip and put it inside a piping bag. I've then taken the green icing piping bag and put it inside that bag. So basically it's a double bag with the tip sandwiched between the two bags. This makes it easier for when I want to change tips. To pipe that grass, you're going to put your tip right against the cake, squeeze out with pressure, and as you release, let go of the pressure, and continue doing that over and over again. Grass up that hill and put those crosses in place. If you don't have these tips, you can use a piping bag and poke little holes in to create your own grass tip, or cut a V shape at the bottom of your piping bag, and that's your alternative to the leaf piping tip. Tip to the cake, pull away. Tip to the cake, pull away. Fill that nice grass border with some biscuit sand. Gently lift and push your bunny into its spot. When adding the feet, you may need to put just a dash of buttercream. This will also help angle it slightly so that you get the best view of the underfoot. Roughly pipe some grass around that bottom border, pulling long strands as much as possible, leaving an open gap for our rolled away section. Marble a touch of black into a white piece of fondant for the stone effect. With a rolling pin, flatten out a piece of black fondant and attach it onto your cake for the back hole of the tomb. Wrap a small piece of this around a biscuit for that stone. Take the remainder of your marble mix, roll into a sausage, shape into a U and flatten out to frame the black entry. pipe some grass for support, and add that stone. Mix a tiny bit of red and blue into white to create a purple fondant. You could do any color here. Go wild, have your creative freedom, get inspired, have fun. If you have flower cutters, you can then easily just do a couple of cutouts. I do also show you here how to make using small balls that you can knit together and squish down to make a flower. We are also going to be popping some yellow and orange flowers onto this. So you could also do purple instead, or whatever other color you want in a different shape, where you would do 5 little dots, which would look very similar to what we're making out of the fondant. Take a little bit of dark green buttercream, put it into a piping bag, snip the tip off, and this is going to be for piping the stems. We've also swapped over to the V-tip for the leaves. Pipe on a stem or two to get an idea of your positioning. You're simply applying pressure to the bag and pressing the icing tip against the cake to create a line. You don't want to push it into the cake, just on the surface. To pipe leaves, we're going to start at the base of the cake, applying pressure to the bag, giving a slight wiggle of our hand as we lift up and away and releasing the pressure. You can practice this on the side just to get the hang of it before you put it on your cake. For doing the yellow and orange flowers, I'm using that same royal icing we used for the sun. I'm simply piping a pattern of dots to create different types of flowers. Again, practice this on something first before doing it on your cake. For the orange, I'm doing 3 dots which I pull to the center, and for the yellow, I'm doing straightforward dots grouped together in 4 and tapering off like 3 and then 2 and then 1, making a long sort of lavender type shape. Continue this all around your cake and just have fun with it. If the bunny feet seem like they want to go for a slide like mine did, just prop them up with a piece of spaghetti or a toothpick until they've set. You can leave this right into the last minute if you're worried about them sliding down and messing up your decor. You can add some little silver daisies to the center of your flowers if you want. And then last but not least, we just have to tackle those whiskers. I've made these out of isomalt. You can also use a hard candy sweet. You're going to melt it down and then use a pulled sugar method. So basically you've got to cool that sugar down a little bit once it's completely melted. Tap it onto a non-stick kind of surface. So I'm using wax paper and pull that sugar, and that's going to give you those long whisker strands. This may get a little bit frustrating, and you can do without them. It's not essential. You could also use spaghetti instead, which you could then paint with white color or gray color. That's another alternative. This melted sugar can get extremely hot, so be very careful not to burn yourself. Poke a little hole in the position where you're wanting to add a whisker. These are extremely fragile, so carefully push them into place and snip off any end piece that is a bit too long. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the different inspirations, ideas, changes that everyone comes up with on these cakes. Have a blessed, awesome, super yummy Easter, and don't forget, it's all about Jesus and what he did on that cross so that we could be saved.